Hi everyone, my name is Yanshan. I'm the head of APAC here at Figment, and excited to see you all. And thank you so much for coming to this event and also building next stage in all the different projects that you are building on right now. And today I'm going to talk about EigenLayer, right? Something that I've been looking forward to speaking about, and not just from a financial standpoint, where I come from. I'm from finance world, right? I'm not a builder like all of you here, working on the next different apps or middleware on Ethereum or other blockchains. But also I want to cover more on the builder's perspective, right? How can EigenLayer benefit all of you? Why you should build on EigenLayer? What are some of the incentives that that you would have by doing so? And of course, some of the risks and criticisms that have been, talked about on EigenLayer as well, right? So I believe some of you here might also have some thoughts or insights about EigenLayer. And so, after my presentation, feel free to chime in, or if you want to discuss with me, please feel free to do so, right? So before I start on EigenLayer, I just want to talk about what is restaking on a higher level kind of understanding, right? So restaking is nothing more than securing multiple protocols with the same collateral, right? So essentially getting more out of your staked ETH, right? If you think about capital efficiency right now, many protocols, they are running on their own validator ecosystem. And as a builder, that's what you have to think about, right? And what EigenLayer what restaking essentially provides you is that you will be able to leverage on the existing security of a base protocol and allow you to basically get the security from there. You don't have to build up your own validator ecosystem, bootstrap your own, entire validator network. It's all available for you with the idea of restaking. And we've seen many protocols that are already doing that. If you look at Polkadot, if you look at the Cosmos SDK chains, they're already doing that. But this is the first time they will be seeing it on Ethereum, right? Which is why, it excites me. And so EigenLayer is basically just an implementation of restaking, right? The official definition behind that is that it is a system of smart contracts that essentially allow you to natively restake your staked ETH or using LSTs, right? But for me, how I would like to think about this is that EigenLayer is more of like a marketplace infrastructure, right? Where it connects three very important participants, right? Firstly, the restakers who are providing the security, the collateral. And secondly, the builders like yourselves, right? Who are building the AVSs, the protocols, the middleware, and who require that trustless architecture, right? Behind what you're building. And number three are the node operators, who essentially, run the AVSs, right? So essentially, it's all about demand and supply, if you think about it, right? The demand coming from you guys, the builders, building on the AVSs, and the supply coming from the restakers, and the node operators, basically just a bridge, right, in between. And in terms of restaking, what are the few steps to do that, right? Essentially, there's just 3 steps. Number one, you create an eigenpot, which is essentially just a smart contract with an address. And thereafter, you spin up a validator, just like how you would, normally restake ETH. And of course, with the only difference is that you'll be pointing your withdrawal address to the eigenpot, right? Because EigenLayer will need a mechanism to enforce, some of their conditions and slashing logic. And thereafter, with that set up, you are able to delegate to an operator who will run the AVS, right? So the first 2 steps here are already available right now, but the last step will be available closer to next month. Actually, that's pretty soon. That's in a few days' time, right? So, of course, the final deadline is still being discussed upon with the recent changes in testnet, but I'll cover that a bit later. But what's important here is that in this whole process, right, your staked ETH remains on the beacon chain. And before you exit the validator, it stays there. And it's all natively generating the restaked returns or rewards, right? So this is what I think is crucial to understand about EigenLayer. But why is restaking important, right? So if you look at the current trend of rewards on Ethereum, it is essentially on a downward trending line, right? Be it consensus layer, execution layer. And if you look at consensus layer, as more validators are being provisioned, you see that the rewards per validator, the consensus layer rewards per validator is declining, right? Following by the concept of minimum viable issuance. And also for execution layer, you think about MEV burn, which is essentially execution layer burn, and which is pretty similar to EIP 1559, for those that know about it, as essentially redistributing the value on the Ethereum protocol from the validators, searchers, builders, away from them to the entire Ethereum ecosystem. That's what this whole MEV burn, execution layer burn, is about. And of course, the idea here, the point here is that the Ethereum Foundation essentially you're at the mercy of the Ethereum Foundation, right? With all these new principles, ethos coming in to increase the health of the blockchain. And of course, it's not entirely the best, right, for validator searchers. So it's to take the agency back, right, from Ethereum Foundation and say that, look, now with EigenLayer, it's a marketplace. I can go there, I can, sell my operator services, sell my security. You guys who are building the AVS is requesting that from us. It's a marketplace, demand and supply. And the node operators are just a bridge between them, right? So what does this mean for you builders, right? Essentially, you are able to bootstrap your validator ecosystem using EigenLayer, right? In a way, for the entire ecosystem, it kind of, if you think about it, it kind of front runs many items on the Ethereum roadmap, right? When you think of the first AVS, EigenDA, I would argue that, in a sense, it front runs Dank sharding, right? Not proto Dank sharding, which went live mid of this month with Dankun upgrade, but full Dank sharding, right? Which is probably going to be live in like a few years' time. So there are various different angles where you can look at this. And for you guys, this is, what you can do. You can bring forth some of the items. You can make things happen before, on EigenLayer, focus on building and not having to focus on validator ecosystem. Right? Another reason why EigenLayer is important is that if you look at the current L2s, the new protocols that are being built, there is compartmentalization and fragmentation of network security. Right? Yeah, you look at the new networks. Let's say if you're trying to build a middleware AVS or protocol, you'd have to go out there, find your validators, and if you end up having a small centralized validator network, it's very easy for a hacker to come in and compromise your entire network security. Right? If you look at, just for example, if you look at the diagram here, in the middleware economics of today, right? You have a layer one, they have their own validator, network. For all the protocols that are building on top of it, essentially they have their own smaller validator network. And it's very easy for a hacker to come in and compromise any one of the middleware, right? Whereas with EigenLayer, the AVSs themselves, or the middleware, they derive security from the underlying layer one. And in order for a hacker to come in, the cost of corruption is much, much higher, right? They would have to attack the base layer to corrupt any one of the middleware, right? So this essentially is the idea of pooled security. It is how it benefits you guys when you build on EigenLayer. Right? Another reason why EigenLayer is important is, as I mentioned, it's a marketplace infrastructure. Right? So when you think about it, the restakers, the operators, they are building on they are going onto EigenLayer, and they are selecting, they have the choice to select different types of AVS. Of course, right now it's only EigenDA, but many more AVSs will come on board. And it kind of gives them the ability to customize their portfolio in a way that, they can choose AVS to subscribe to based on the risk tolerance, risk aversion. And also, on the AVS side, on the other hand, you guys also have the ability to choose what type of restakers participate in your consensus, right? Perhaps, let's say, you want a particular restaker to have a particular soulbound token, or based in a certain location, or even just to have some kind of verifiable credentials. That is possible, right? And even what is possible is also having your own native token, where you can allow it to participate in a dual token kind of consensus structure with the underlying stake ETH, right? Very similar to what Mantle is doing right now, So all of this, what this means is that there's a lot of customizability, variability, right? Essentially, I argue that it kind of increases the decentralization in the whole Ethereum network as well. And of course, it's not all, good. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff about EigenLayer, but there are also some risks and criticisms that were talked about, especially if you guys were looking at the debate between Justin Drake and Justin Drake and Srinam Kannan, the founder of EigenLayer, right? There are many pertinent points that were raised. So the first point here is the additional slashing risks and smart contract risks that exist with EigenLayer, right? If you think about it, EigenLayer functions on the eigenpod, the smart contract, right? Essentially, the validator points the withdrawal address towards this eigenpod so that EigenLayer can enforce the slashing conditions if they need to, right? And so this kind of introduces, in a way, if there's any error in the smart contract implementation, it's very easy for a hacker to find a potential attack vector, right? So additional slashing conditions, smart contract risk, what does this mean? This means that the validator themselves, or the node operators, will have more onerous requirements to meet. And this brings me to my second point, right? Having all these more onerous requirements, what does this mean? This means that the validators themselves need to be more professional. They need to be able to monitor all these risks. They need to have a larger team to look at the various different slashing logic to ensure that not every single one of them is followed accordingly, right? Because if one of them is just flouted, slashing conditions is not met, and it just cascades down, it will be detrimental, right? So for home stakers, then it will be much more difficult. Individual home stakers will find it much more difficult to run, causing an increase in centralization, right? This is one of the arguments that were talked about. But I thought that the founder of EigenLayer, Srinam Kannan, had a pretty good response, which is that as a home staker, you can still run your own validator, 32 ETH, right? And you just have to monitor the base slashing conditions of Ethereum. And when you are delegating to a node operator, you can always choose someone that's more professional, that has the basic the expertise to run the different AVSs, right? And of course, as I mentioned just now, the AVSs themselves that you guys are building can also specify certain conditions for the restaker, and that in a way also increases the versatility, the variety of on-node operators on EigenLayer. Right, and of course, there's also one very big particular point that was talked about, which is increased systemic risk. Right, so as I mentioned just now, EigenLayer operates on pooled security, where the AVS on top, they can derive security from the underlying layer ones, and thereby, having this decrease in systemic risk. That is the premise of EigenLayer. However, if you think about it, if the amount of staked ETH remains constant and more AVSs are building on top of EigenLayer, what does this mean? This means that more stress is put on the base layer. The base layer has to secure more protocols, and it could actually increase systemic risk, right? If you think about, if let's say there's a major slashing incident and it cascades down to cause many of the validators going below 32 ETH, right? And causing huge slashing risks to the base layer as well, right? So in a way, I think what Vitalik mentioned was pretty pertinent, which is that if the losses that are caused by such an incident are kept to the validators and the restakers that are participating in this particular AVS, that's okay, right? As long as, but if it spills to the Ethereum base layer, then that is a huge issue, right? Because then maybe the Ethereum committee have to consider getting a reorg or even a hard fork, and that will be detrimental to the entire Ethereum ecosystem, right? So, I think what Srinam Kannan answered makes a lot of sense as well. He mentioned 2 points, right? Number one is that EigenLayer itself has a strong principle and ethos that they would never participate or interfere with Ethereum's social consensus layer, right? That's number one. And number two is that essentially EigenLayer has its own social layer as well, right? They have the ability to pause EigenLayer, which they are planning to do, when EigenDA goes live in April. and they have their own slashing veto committee. And essentially they are able to conduct executive decisions on EigenLayer itself, should anything bad happen, right? But of course, all this is in theory, right? It's hypothetical. No one actually knows who will do what when things actually go wrong, right? So we'll wait and see for that. So these are some of the risks and criticisms. So to balance out, the kind of, to have a fuller understanding of EigenLayer, right? And for those interested, I really encourage you to check out the debate between them, because it really contains many interesting points and factors that you should consider when building on EigenLayer. Right, so how is Figment participating in the entire EigenLayer ecosystem? Right, so Figment Capital is an early investor in EigenLayer since the seed round in August 2022, and this basically shows the testament to our early conviction in this technology, right? And we're also part of the initial operator working group, right? We are working very closely with the EigenLayer team, and right now what we have done is that we have also enabled restaking on mainnet for our customers, all integrated within the Figment app, right? And we also have a public operator, which will start with EigenDA. That's going to be live in April. And of course, we have also inked partnerships with liquid restaking platforms like Renzo and Rio. Right, so more specifically on what we've built. So essentially right now, for anyone looking to participate in EigenLayer, they can essentially connect their Ethereum wallet address, to the Figment app, right? And the next step is that they are able to create an EigenPod directly on the Figment app without having to go on to the EigenLayer UI. So it essentially streamlines the whole process, make it much more seamless. And at the same time, participants are able to to provision the validators directly on the Figment app and automatically pointing towards the EigenPod. Right, so it essentially reduces a lot of hassle for anyone looking to participate. And of course, this is what is live now. But in April, when EigenDA goes live, what we'll have is that we'll have the ability within the Figment app to directly delegate to our own node operator, which we'll be running as well. And of course, for those that want to restake to their own white label operator, we have that option as well, right? And in terms of the broader timeline, so what we are looking at with EigenLayer right now is that they will have a phased mainnet launch in April, right? After the testing, of course, with the depreciation, the end of the life cycle for Goerli testnet, migrating over to Hosky, right? That will have to be, seen through before we go into the actual full mainnet launch. And the first step here would be the pausing of EigenLayer itself, of all the web apps, the contracts, so that they can allow for controlled deployment of all the operators, right? And of course, in April, as I mentioned, EigenDA will launch and allow all the operators to subscribe to it. And what they will do then is also have a new staker dashboard, have an operator discovery. And with that done, then they will re-enable staking again and withdrawal and deposits, right? So the next step after that, once it's live, right, you also see the launch of economics, payments, how the payments will work, what are the slashing conditions, how is it going to be like in terms of what are the slashing conditions on the EigenDA for a start. And of course, many other different AVSs will launch, right? I think there are over 60 now. So I'm looking at all of you, to hopefully build more on EigenLayer to increase this entire marketplace infrastructure. And finally, as I mentioned, more liquid restaking platforms will be coming up, right? Renzo, Rio, and etc. So yeah, so this is the entire, timeline of EigenLayer. I really look forward, to have as many of you participate in this as possible. If you have any questions or if you want to discuss more about EigenLayer, or if you have any comments as well, please feel free to approach me after my presentation. Thank you very much.